The blade is already drawn. Rain beats down on the execution ground like the sky itself is angry. Mud swallows the boots of 1,000 soldiers standing in perfect, cold silence. Torches burn sideways in the wind. And at the center of it all, walking through the parted crowd like death wearing a crown, is King Caden Wolf. He does not rush. He never rushes. His black cloak drags through the mud and no one dares look directly at him. 6 feet 3 inches of controlled fury, moving toward the woman kneeling in the center of the square. Her wrists are bound. Her head is down. The executioner steps aside without being asked. This is how it always goes. Caden has done this before. Signed the order. Walked the ground. Watched the sentence carried out. He does not feel it anymore. That part of him went quiet a long time ago. He raises the blade. Hi, viewers. Have you ever seen someone freeze in the middle of doing something they've done 100 times before, and you just knew? Something had changed forever? Drop a yes or no in the comments. The woman does not beg. That is the first thing that stops him. Every condemned person begs. They scream, they bargain, they collapse. This woman's spine stays straight. Her shoulders do not shake. Even on her knees in the mud, in the rain, with his blade above her head, she holds herself like she is the one with the power here. Caden's jaw tightens. His eyes move down her back, and that is when he sees them. Scars. Not one, not two, dozens. Long, deep, deliberate marks crossing her back like someone took their time. Someone enjoyed it. The torn fabric of her dress clings to the evidence of years. Caden's arm does not move. The blade stays raised. The crowd waits. His generals wait. The wind screams through the torches, and not a single person breathes. His wolf goes completely still inside him. Then a small hand grabs his cloak. He looks down. A child. A little girl. Maybe 5 years old. Soaked to the bone. Standing in the mud with tears cutting clean lines down her dirty face. She is not screaming. She is not running. She is looking straight up at him with eyes too serious for her age, and she says it so quietly he almost misses it under the rain. Please, they're hurting my mom. The execution ground goes silent in a way that has nothing to do with the wind dying down. Caden stares at the child. The child stares back. And somewhere inside the chest of the most feared Alpha King in the Northern Territories, something cracks. Not breaks, not shatters. Cracks. One clean fracture line. Like ice splitting under weight, it was never meant to hold. He looks back at the woman. She has lifted her head now. Her eyes find his across the rain and the mud, and the distance between condemned and executioner. They are dark brown, nearly black, and they do not hold fear. They hold something that takes him a full 3 seconds to identify. Fury. She is furious. At him, at the crowd, at the blade, at all of it. And underneath the fury, so controlled it is almost invisible, is a pain so old it has become part of her bones. His nostrils flare. Her scent hits him like a wall. Blood. Rain. Something underneath both of those things warm and dark, and unbearably familiar in a way he cannot explain, and will not accept. His wolf surges forward so hard Caden's hand shakes. The blade wavers. One of his generals shifts behind him, confused, waiting for the command. The command does not come. Caden Wolf, king of the northern packs, executioner of traitors, destroyer of enemies, has been standing with a blade raised over a kneeling woman for 40 seconds, and he cannot make his arm complete the motion. The child's hand is still gripping his cloak. He sheathes the blade. The crowd erupts not in cheers, in shock. Murmurs tear through the soldiers like fire through dry wood. His head, General Marcus, steps forward with his mouth already open. Caden turns and looks at him. Marcus closes his mouth. Cut her bindings, Caden says. His voice is completely flat. Now. No one moves for 2 full seconds. Then they move very fast. Caden crouches down to the child's level. Rain drips off his jaw. Up close, she is shaking so hard her teeth click together, but she does not step back from him. He notices that. He files it somewhere important. Where did they take her? He asks quietly. The child points toward the far end of the square where 3 of his lower pack enforcers are standing near the holding posts. Caden follows the direction of her tiny finger. He stands. He walks, and something behind his eyes goes very, very cold. The woman's scream cuts through the rain before he reaches them. And in that moment, the Alpha King lost control. What happens when the most powerful man in the room is the last one to understand what he's feeling, and the only one who can save her has spent his entire life learning not to? He moves before the scream finishes. 3 enforcers. 2 are on the ground before they register he has crossed the square. The third turns, and Caden grabs him by the throat with one gloved hand and walks him backward into the holding post so hard the wood splinters behind him. "Who gave the order?" Caden says. Not a question. A blade with words wrapped around it. The enforcer's mouth opens and closes. His eyes are white with terror. Caden does not wait for the answer. He drops him, turns, and finds the woman. She is on the ground. One hand braced in the mud, one arm wrapped around her ribs. Her hair is plastered across her face. There is a fresh cut along her jaw on top of everything else already written on her body. She is breathing in short, controlled pulls, the breathing of someone who has learned to manage pain quietly, so no one uses it against them. She looks up at him. She does not say thank you. "I don't need your rescue," she says. Her voice is low and rough, and absolutely certain. Caden stares at her for a moment. "You're on the ground in the mud. I've been lower." Something moves through his chest that he does not have a name for. He extends his hand. She looks at it the way someone looks at a trap, cataloging every angle, calculating every exit. Then she ignores it completely and pushes herself upright on her own, swaying once, catching herself, straightening her spine until she is standing fully and looking at him at nearly eye level because she is taller than he expected. She is also more everything than he expected. Up close, her face is sharp and angular, beautiful in the way a storm is beautiful, something you admire from behind glass. The defiance in her expression is not performance. It is the face of a woman who stopped performing a long time ago and simply became what she needed to survive. His wolf growls low and long inside him. The word arrives before he can stop it. Not out loud. Never out loud. But inside the place where the wolf lives, it drops like a stone into still water. "Mine." Caden's jaw locks. He turns away from that word, buries it, steps on it. "You'll come to the palace," he says, for questioning. "Am I under arrest?" "You were already under a death sentence. Consider this an improvement." She stares at him. He stares back. Neither of them move for 3 full seconds. Then the little girl appears at the woman's side, threading small fingers through hers, and some of the iron leaves the woman's face. Not all of it, but enough to see what lives underneath. She looks down at the child, and something passes across her expression that Caden has to look away from because it is too honest for a public space. "Fine," she says. She does not look at him when she says it. They walk toward the palace through the parted crowd. Caden walks beside her. Not behind her. Not ahead beside. He does not examine why. She stumbles once on the uneven ground. His hand moves toward her arm by instinct. She feels it coming before it arrives and shifts her weight away in one smooth motion. "Don't," she says quietly. He pulls his hand back. His wolf does not like that. His wolf has opinions about a great many things in the last 10 minutes that Caden has no intention of entertaining. He keeps walking. He keeps his hands at his sides. He tells himself the only reason his pulse is elevated is the adrenaline of the confrontation. He is a very good liar. They pass under the palace gate, and the torchlight catches the side of her face and the old scar along her collarbone, and Caden looks straight ahead, because if he looks at her right now, something in his chest is going to do something. He will not be able to explain to his generals. Behind him, Marcus falls into step and leans close. "Sire, the council will want answers. They can want whatever they like," Caden says. "The execution was public. Canceling it publicly sends a message." "Yes," Caden says. "It does." Marcus goes quiet. The woman walks beside him and does not ask a single question about where she is being taken. That bothers him more than the defiance did. People who stop asking questions about their destination have already survived too many places they didn't choose. The palace doors open. Warmth and light pour out. The child makes a small sound and presses closer to her mother's side. The woman's hand tightens around the child's fingers. Just for a moment, her steps slow. Just for a moment. She looks up at the palace like she is calculating whether this is better or worse than the execution ground. Then she walks through the door. And Caden follows her in, and the doors close behind them both. And somewhere in the palace, a clock strikes midnight, and he realizes he does not know her name. He realizes, with a cold precision that surprises even him, that he very much wants to. She is already at the window when he opens the door. Caden stops in the doorframe. She is standing with her back to him, both hands braced on the stone ledge, looking out over the dark palace grounds like she is memorizing the layout, like she is planning. The bandages the palace physician wrapped around her ribs show white against her dark skin above the borrowed dress. Her feet are bare on the stone floor. She does not turn around. "How long have you been awake?" he says. "Since they left me alone." A pause. "An hour, maybe." He steps inside. She still does not turn. He crosses to the chair near the fire and sits, leaning back, watching her study the grounds. The fire snaps and pops. Outside, the rain has slowed to a hiss. "The east gate is locked from the inside," he says. "The guard rotation is every 20 minutes. The wall on the north side is 40 feet. She turns then, slowly. The firelight catches her eyes, and they are sharp and furious and a little bit startled, though she controls the startled part fast. "You could just say, 'I'm a prisoner,'" she says. "You're not. Then why tell me the gate is locked? So you stop calculating and sit down. You have 3 cracked ribs." Something crosses her face. Not quite surprise, not quite anger. Something in between that she swallows quickly. She turns back to the window for one more moment. Then she moves to the chair across from him and sits. And the way she lowers herself tells him exactly how much the ribs are hurting, because she does it without making a sound, and that kind of silent management does not happen by accident. "Where's my daughter?" she says. "The room next to this one. She is asleep." The physician confirmed she was not injured. The woman closes her eyes for exactly 2 seconds, opens them, back to stone. "What do you want from me?" she says. "Your name would be a start." She looks at him for a long moment, like she is weighing what a name costs in this room, what information gives him. "Sarah," she says finally. "Sarah Calloway." Caden nods slowly. "Sarah." Something happens when he says her name. Something he does not look at. "My daughter is Lily," she says. Not because he asked. Because she wants him to know Lily is a person with a name, and not a detail. "Lily," he repeats. The fire pops. Sarah watches him with the focused attention of someone who has learned to read danger in the smallest shifts of expression. He lets her look. He has nothing to hide in this moment, which is a strange thing to realize about himself. "You were sentenced for theft," he says. "I know what I was sentenced for." "Did you do it?" Her chin lifts. "I took bread. From a merchant who had been underpaying his workers for 6 years, including me. That's still theft under pack law. Then pack law is wrong." It lands flat and certain in the space between them. No apology behind it. No fear of what he might do with it. She has just told the Alpha King his law is wrong, and her heartbeat, as far as he can tell, has not changed. His wolf shifts. Caden leans forward slightly. "You understand who you're talking to." "A man with a blade he didn't use," she says. "Yes, I'm aware." The silence that follows is not empty. It has weight and texture, and something running underneath it that neither of them is going to name at 11 o'clock at night in a palace room with a fire burning low. Caden stands. He moves toward the door. He stops with his hand on the frame and does not turn around. "The physician will come again in the morning. You'll eat. You won't be questioned until you've slept." She says nothing. "The door has no lock," he says, from the inside. He leaves. He walks down the corridor and does not slow his pace, and does not look back. He turns the corner and stops walking, and stands in the dark hallway, with his back against the stone wall for a full 30 seconds. His wolf is not growling anymore. It is very, very quiet. The kind of quiet that means it has already decided something. Caden pushes off the wall and keeps moving. Tells himself whatever just happened in that room is nothing. Strategy, intelligence gathering, standard protocol. He almost makes it to his own chambers before he accepts that he already knows her name in a way he will not be forgetting. Lily finds him first. Caden is in the corridor at 6 in the morning going over reports with Marcus when the small figure rounds the corner at a run and nearly collides with his legs. She stops, looks up, looks at the papers, looks at Marcus, looks back at Caden with the unsettling directness of a child who has not yet learned to pretend. "You're the king," she says. "Yes." "You have a lot of papers." "Yes." She considers this. "My mom has a lot of papers too. She used to keep them in a box, numbers, so we always knew how much we had." A pause. "We didn't have much." Marcus clears his throat. Caden cuts him a look, and Marcus finds the ceiling very interesting. Caden crouches down to Lily's level. She does not step back. She tilts her head slightly, studying him the way her mother studied him, like he is a problem she intends to solve. "Are you hungry?" Caden says. "Yes, but Mama said not to take anything without asking." "You're asking?" She thinks about this with genuine seriousness. Okay, then she says, quieter. She cried last night. She thinks I was asleep, but I wasn't. She's really good at being quiet, but I always know. Something lands in Caden's chest and does not move. He does not answer that. He stands, turns to the nearest guard, and gives quiet instructions. The guard disappears. Caden looks back down at Lily, who is now studying the stone floor pattern with one bare foot tracing the lines between the tiles. Is this your house? She asks without looking up. Yes, it's very big. She looks up. Are you lonely? Marcus makes a sound behind him. Caden does not move. Go eat breakfast, he says quietly. Someone will take you to the kitchen. Lily nods like this is a completely normal conversation and turns to follow the guard. She goes 3 steps and stops and turns back around. You smell safe, she says. Simply, factually, like she is reporting the weather. Then she has gone around the corner, bare feet slapping the stone, and the corridor is quiet again. Caden stands completely still for a moment. Something is happening inside him that he does not have tactical language for. Not a strategy, not a decision. Something slower and more dangerous than either of those things. He looks down at the reports in his hand. The words do not resolve into meaning. Marcus says nothing. For once in his life, Marcus says absolutely nothing. Good. Caden thinks about Lily's face when she said her mother cried. The complete absence of drama in it, just a fact, delivered by a child who is already too used to collecting facts about her mother's pain, because knowing is the only protection she has ever had. He walks to the window at the end of the corridor. The morning is gray and cold, the grounds below empty and wet. Somewhere in the east wing, Sarah Calloway is awake, probably at the window again, probably planning 3 exits she will never need to use. He thinks about Lily sleeping through her mother's quiet crying and not sleeping at all. He thinks about what kind of man makes a woman that controlled breakdown the moment she believes she is alone. The reports crumple slightly in his fist. He does not notice until Marcus quietly takes them. 2 floors below, in the kitchen, he hears it Lily's laugh. Clear and sudden and completely unguarded. The laugh of a child who has forgotten for 30 seconds to be careful. A cook says something. Lily laughs again. And then, very faint, through a doorway and a corridor and 2 floors of stone, Sarah's voice, softer than he has heard it, saying her daughter's name. Caden turns back toward the east wing. He tells himself he is going to check on the physician's morning report. He is already walking before the lie finishes forming. Dr. Elliot Kane has warm eyes. Caden notices this from the doorway before he steps inside. The palace physician is 29, dark-haired, with the kind of steady hands and easy manner that make frightened people feel immediately less frightened. He is sitting across from Sarah in the morning light, speaking in a low voice, and Sarah is not smiling. Not quite, but the rigid line of her shoulders has dropped 2 inches. Her hands are loose in her lap. She says something and Kane laughs, quiet and genuine, and she almost laughs back. Almost. Caden steps into the room. Kane stands immediately. Sire. Sarah turns. The shoulders come back up. The hands close. Caden watches it happen in real time, the shudders going back across her face, the careful management sliding back into place, and something irritating moves through his chest. Morning assessment, Caden says. He is looking at Kane. Ribs are holding, swelling down. I've recommended 2 more days of rest before any. She relaxes around you, Caden says. Kane blinks. I sorry? She was relaxed, before I walked in. Caden keeps his voice completely even. He is very good at this. Why? Kane looks briefly confused by the question, as if the answer is self-evident. I suppose because I'm not a threat, sire. She has no reason to guard herself with me. The room is quiet. Sarah is watching Caden with an expression that is very carefully neutral, but her eyes are doing something else entirely. She has understood this conversation exactly. He can see it in the slight tilt of her head, the way she pulls one slow breath and holds it. She finds it interesting that he noticed. She does not look away from him. That will be all, Kane, Caden says. Kane gathers his things with professional efficiency and leaves, pulling the door mostly closed behind him. The room is suddenly smaller. The morning light sits between them like a physical thing. He has a kind face, Sarah says. Not to wound, just a fact. I'm aware. You don't. She says it the way she says everything straight and clean. No cushion. Your face tells people they should already be afraid before you open your mouth. Caden looks at her. And yet you're not. Something shifts in her expression. A door almost opens. Then she pulls it back. "I've already been afraid of worse," she says quietly. "You don't register the same way. He should leave it there." He knows he should leave it there. "What does register the same way?" he says. The question lands in the room and neither of them is entirely prepared for it. Sarah looks at him for 3 full seconds, and for once the management slips, not much, just the edges, just enough that he catches a glimpse of something real underneath all that iron. Then Lily's voice carries through the walls from the next room, calling for her mother, and Sarah stands. The door closes again. She is already moving. At the threshold she pauses, does not turn. "Dr. Kane," she says, "asked me how I was feeling and actually waited for the answer." She goes through to Lily. Caden stands in the empty room, with morning light on the floor, and the question sitting in his chest like a splinter he cannot get to. He does not like Elliot Kane's warm eyes. He does not examine why. What he does know, with the cold precision that has run every decision of his reign, is that something in this palace has shifted in the last 12 hours, and it is not the weather. And it started, he realizes, the moment she told him not to touch her, and he listened. The file lands on Caden's desk at noon. He does not open it for 3 minutes. He sits with his hands flat on the cover and looks at his general's face and reads everything in Marcus's expression that Marcus is too careful to say out loud. Then he opens it. The photographs are old. The medical reports are not. 6 years of documented injuries cross-referenced with 6 years of dismissed complaints. Filed, stamped, shelved, forgotten. Every single report routed through the same PAC enforcement office. Every single dismissal signed by the same 3 names. Names Caden recognizes. Names that attended his last council dinner and shook his hand and looked him in the eye. He closes the file. He opens it again because he needs to be certain he is seeing what he is seeing. He is. Sarah Calloway reported her mate 4 times in 3 years. 4 times she walked into an enforcement office with evidence, with documentation, with the kind of careful preparation that tells him she knew exactly how the system worked and tried to work within it anyway. 4 times the reports were marked incomplete and returned to her with bureaucratic language that essentially told a woman being destroyed inside her own home to go back to it quietly. The 5th time she stopped reporting. That was 2 years ago. Caden sets the file down and walks to the window. The afternoon has gone gray and heavy outside, clouds pressing low over the palace walls. He stands with his hands behind his back and does not move for a long time. He thinks about her spine in the mud at the execution ground, the way she held it straight while rain hammered her shoulders. He understands now what it costs to hold yourself that way after years of being told to kneel by the very people whose job was to help you stand. The door opens behind him. He does not have to turn to know it is her. Her footsteps are quieter than anyone else in the palace, not because she is small, because she has spent years moving through spaces where making noise had consequences. "Marcus told me you sent for the file," she says. "I sent for it myself." Marcus retrieved it. Silence. Then her footsteps move closer. She stops a few feet behind him. He can feel her looking at the file on the desk. "How much of it did you read?" she says. "All of it." A beat. And he turns around. She is standing with her arms at her sides, chin level, eyes steady. She has prepared herself for this conversation. He can see the architecture of that preparation in every line of her body, the way she has already decided not to break in front of him, already built the wall, already placed herself behind it. That wall was built a long time before today. "I'm sorry," he says. She blinks. Once. The only crack in the preparation. "The system failed you," he continues. 4 times. On record. With documentation you provided. Under my authority. My enforcement structure. My judges. He says each word clean and separate, and does not look away from her face. "I'm sorry." Sarah stares at him. The wall holds, but her hands move just barely, the fingers of her right hand curling once at her side like she is catching something she almost dropped. "I didn't come here for an apology," she says. "I know. I'm giving you one anyway." The fire in the room is low and warm, and the gray light comes through the windows, and Sarah Calloway stands in the middle of it looking at a man who just said something no one has ever said to her, and she does not know what to do with it. He can see that. He watches her decide not to cry, with the same focused control she uses for everything. She looks away first, toward the window. "He was powerful," she says, quietly, like she is telling it to the glass, not to him. People liked him. He was easy to like when other people were watching. A pause. I used to think if I was better, quieter, more careful, less. She stops. It took me a long time to understand that nothing I did was the reason. Caden does not move. He understands that if he moves right now, she will stop. I stayed because of Lily, she says. People like to say that like it was a weakness, like I should have just left. Her voice drops lower. You can't just leave when leaving means your child has no roof and no food, and the man you're leaving has enough power to make sure you're hunted for the rest of your short life. She turns back to face. Her eyes are dry. They are burning. I didn't stay because I was weak. I survived because I refused to die. The room holds that sentence like a cathedral holds silence. Caden looks at her, this woman who rebuilt herself out of wreckage every single morning for years, and still showed up, and still fought, and still kept her daughter fed and warm, and told her not to take things without asking because she wanted Lily to know there was a right way to move through the world, even when the world had been entirely wrong to them. His wolf does not growl this time. It goes completely, reverently still. I believe you, he says. She looks at him for a long moment. Something in her face shifts, barely visible, just at the edges, like the first degree of change before weather turns. Not trust. Not yet, but the thing that has to exist before trust can. The men who dismissed my reports, she says. They still have their positions. No, Caden says. They don't. She goes very still. What did you do? What I should have done the first time your file crossed through this system. He holds her gaze. It won't happen again. Not to you. Not to anyone. Sarah stares at him. He watches the wall hold, and hold, and hold, and then, in the space between one breath and the next, her eyes fill. Not falling, not breaking, just filling. Like a cup that has been running dry for so long it has forgotten what full feels like. She turns away before anything spills. Lily will want dinner soon, she says. Her voice is completely steady. I'll have it sent. She nods once and walks toward the door, and Caden watches her go and does not stop her, because she needs to walk out of this room on her own 2 feet, and he understands that more than he has ever understood anything. She stops at the door, does not turn. Thank you, she says, so quiet he almost misses it. Then she is gone, and Caden stands in the room with her words still in the air, and his wolf still, and silent, and something in his chest that feels, for the first time in longer than he can remember, like it is pointing somewhere. The council chamber goes silent when Caden walks in. That is normal. What is not normal is that he has not called this meeting. He has arrived without notice, without Marcus, without the formal entrance his position requires. He has simply opened the doors and walked in and taken his seat at the head of the table and placed the file flat in the center where everyone can see the name on the cover. Sarah Calloway. 9 council members look at the file. 3 of them look at the table. Those 3 Caden watches with the kind of attention that has ended careers. Councilman Briggs, he says. Councilman Hale. Director Marsh. He says their names slowly. No anger in his voice. Something colder than anger. You will explain to me in this room, in front of your colleagues, why 4 separate enforcement complaints, filed with documentation, physical evidence, and medical corroboration, were marked incomplete and returned without action. Briggs is 62 and has survived 4 administrations by knowing when to speak and when to fold. He reads this room correctly. Sire, at the time of filing you had photographs, Caden says. You had a physician's report. You had written testimony. What part of that documentation was incomplete? Silence. What part? Caden says again. Still flat. Still cold. Hale shifts in his seat. The complainant's mate held rank, sire. Standard protocol in ranked mate disputes requires. Ranked mate disputes, Caden repeats. His voice does not rise. It drops. Is that what we're calling it? He opens the file. He does not look at it. He looks at Hale. Page 11. Would you like to read page 11 to this council, or should I? Hale says nothing. Because page 11, Caden continues, contains a pediatric evaluation conducted without the mother's knowledge by a physician who was later pressured to amend his findings, which he did not do, and which is the only reason that document still exists in its original form. He closes the file. The physician's practice was shut down 6 months after he refused to alter the report. His license was suspended on grounds that this council ratified. The room is very still. Director Marsh, who has not spoken, sets both hands flat on the table in the manner of a man preparing to argue. Caden looks at him, and Marsh's hands go flat and still. You protected him, Caden says. Simply, you used the authority of this council, and by extension the authority of my office, to protect a man who was destroying his family. You buried the evidence. You punished the people who tried to surface it. He stands. Every person in the room sits straighter. And then you attended my council dinners, and you shook my hand. The fire in the hearth behind him is the only sound. Your positions are suspended, effective the moment you leave this room. You will be held for formal review. You will not communicate with each other or with any member of the enforcement office until that review is complete. He looks around the full table. If any other member of this council has approved or overlooked a similar filing in the last decade, I am giving you until tomorrow morning to bring it to me directly. After tomorrow morning, I will find it myself. He picks up the file. If your laws protect monsters, he says, looking at the 3 suspended men with absolute stillness, then I will break your laws. And I will rebuild them into something that doesn't make a woman carry evidence of her own destruction through your offices 4 times, and leave with nothing. He walks to the door. This council is adjourned. He leaves. The doors close behind him. In the corridor, Marcus falls into step beside him and says nothing for a full 30 seconds. Then, quietly, the 3 of them will try to coordinate their accounts before the review. I know, Caden says. I've already moved their communications access. Marcus nods. Another 30 seconds of silence. She doesn't know you did any of this, Marcus says. No. Are you going to tell her? Caden walks 3 more steps. Some things don't require an announcement. He turns toward the east wing. He is halfway down the corridor when he hears Lily's laughter, and then Sarah's voice, lower, and then something that stops him completely in the middle of the hallway because he has not heard it before. Sarah is laughing. Quiet, real, unguarded, just for that 1 second. Gone almost before it registers. Caden stands in the corridor and does not move. His wolf does something in his chest that he has no military language for and no tactical response to. He stands there for longer than he would ever admit. Then he turns and walks back toward his own wing, because she needs tonight to be safe and warm and unobserved. He can want things later. The fire has burned down to coals when he finds her. 2 a.m. Caden cannot sleep. This is not new, and he moves through the palace the way he always does at this hour. Quiet and deliberate, checking what needs checking. He does not tell himself he is moving toward the east wing. He simply ends up there. The door to the library is open. Sarah is sitting on the floor, not a chair. The floor, with her back against the base of the window seat and her knees pulled up and a book open across them that she is not reading. She is looking at the fire's last light with the expression of someone deep inside, a thought they cannot get out of. She hears him. Of course she does. She looks up. For a moment neither of them speaks. He could turn around. She could tell him to leave. Those are both available options and neither of them takes them. He walks in. He sits on the floor too, not close. The correct distance. The distance that says he understands the rules of this space, and leans back against the chair behind him. The fire breathes between them. You couldn't sleep, she says. Not a question. No. He looks at the fire. You. I don't sleep much. A pause. I used to think it would get better, when things were safer. She looks down at the book. Turns out the body takes longer to believe it's safe than the brain does. He looks at her. She is not looking at him, and that makes it easier to look at her. The line of her jaw, the way her fingers rest on the open page without actually holding it, the dark circles under her eyes that the morning light hides better than firelight does. How long, he says, the not sleeping? She thinks. 6 years. Maybe 7. His jaw tightens once. He releases it. Lily sleeps hard, Sarah says, quietly. Always has, even when things were even then. She'd go out like a light, and I'd sit up and listen and make sure. She exhales. I don't know how to stop listening. Caden is quiet for a moment. Then, what do you listen for? She looks at him then. Like the question surprised her. Everything, she says. Footsteps, doors, changes in sound. The difference between the house settling and... She stops. Her jaw closes. She looks back at the fire. You learn to sort it. What's safe and what isn't. It becomes automatic. And now I listen to a palace full of 100 people I don't know. And I try to remember that 100 people means 100 layers of sound between Lily and anything that could get to her. A beat. It helps. A little. The fire shifts and settles. Outside the window, clouds have broken apart, and a strip of cold, clear sky shows through. Stars very sharp and still. I used to be afraid of the dark, Caden says. She looks at him, surprised again. When I was young, before training. He looks at the ceiling. My father's solution was to lock me in a dark room until I wasn't afraid anymore. She says nothing. She does not offer sympathy or horror. She just receives it, which is exactly right. Did it work? She asks. I'm not afraid of the dark. A beat. I'm not afraid of very much. I know, she says, quiet. I can tell. She pauses. That must be lonely. The word falls into the room like a stone into a deep well. Caden looks at her. She is already looking at him, and neither of them arrange their expressions into anything different. And for 12 full seconds, they are simply two people, sitting on a library floor, in the middle of the night, being entirely honest, without saying anything dramatic about it. Then his hand moves. Slow, deliberate, across the floor between them until his fingers rest an inch from hers. Just an inch. An offer, not a demand. Available but not assumed. Sarah looks down at his hand. She looks at it for a long time. The fire breathes. She does not pull away. She does not lean in. She closes her eyes for exactly 3 seconds, and when she opens them she looks at the fire again, and she turns her hand over very slowly on the floor until the back of her fingers brush his. Not holding. Just contact. Barely. Like testing whether the ground will hold before trusting it with full weight. Caden does not move. Does not close his hand. Does not change a single thing about the moment. They sit that way for a long time. The fire going gray and cool. The stars sharp outside. Lily laughs in her sleep in the next room. One small, dreaming sound. And Sarah's face does something that Caden will carry with him for the rest of his life. She smiles, just slightly, without meaning to, and the iron goes entirely out of her for one unguarded second. He sees it. He does not say a word about it. When the clock strikes 3, she stands slowly, carefully, and he stands with her, and they are close in the dark, and neither of them steps back, which means they are standing near enough for him to see her breathing change the smallest shift, the slightest awareness of distance, and her eyes come up to his and hold there. Good night, Caden, she says, first time she has used his name. He feels it like a key turning. Good night, Sarah. She goes through the door. He listens to her footsteps go quiet down the hall. He stands in the library for a full minute before he can make himself move in the other direction. And the question that has been building since the execution ground, since the mud and the blade and the child's small hand on his cloak, is no longer a question. He just does not know yet what she will do with the answer. The square is packed by 9 in the morning. Word travels fast in a packed territory when the Alpha King calls a public judgment. They come from the market, from the training grounds, from every corner of the city pressed shoulder to shoulder in the cold morning air, breath rising in white clouds, everyone trying to see the platform at the center. Guards ring the raised platform 3 deep. The council members who have not been suspended take their positions along the outer edge, faces composed, watching Caden the way prey watches a hawk very carefully and very still. Caden stands at the top of the platform steps. Beside him, Marcus holds a sealed declaration. Below, in the center of the square, Sarah Calloway's former mate Rowan Vale, ranked beta of the Southern District, broad-shouldered and well-dressed, and standing with his attorney at his left and 2 character witnesses at his right, looks up at Caden with the expression of a man who has never believed consequences were built for him. He is about to receive a significant education. Caden has not told Sarah what today holds. She did not ask. She put on the clean dress the palace staff provided, braided her hair with the efficiency of someone who does not make ceremonies out of small things, checked Lily's breakfast, and followed the palace escort to the square with her chin at exactly the angle he has come to understand, means she has already prepared for the worst. She stands to his left now, 1 step below him. Close enough. Lily is inside with 2 guards. Sarah selected herself after interviewing them both, a fact Caden's head of security still looks slightly stunned by. Marcus breaks the seal. Rowan's attorney steps forward immediately. Sire, we have submitted documentation establishing that any allegations— Sit down, Caden says. The attorney sits. Caden looks at Rowan Vale. Rowan meets his gaze steadily. This, Caden thinks, is the face of a man who has never been told no by anyone worth fearing, who built his entire identity on the gap between what he did in private and what people believed about him in public. Rowan Vale, Caden says. His voice carries across the full square without effort. The evidence reviewed by this office in the past 72 hours includes medical reports spanning 6 years, enforcement filings that were deliberately buried by members of this administration, a pediatric evaluation that was suppressed, and testimony from 4 individuals who witnessed or treated the results of your actions directly. He pauses. This is not a matter of allegation. This is a matter of documented record. The square is church quiet. Rowan's jaw tightens. First crack in the composure. Furthermore, Caden continues, 3 members of this council who facilitated the burial of those filings have been formally suspended and will face separate proceedings. Their cooperation in concealing evidence under the authority of this office constitutes a breach that this administration will not absorb quietly or quickly. He looks out at the crowd, at the faces, at the people who came expecting theater. I want every person standing in this square to understand something clearly. His voice does not rise. It does not need to. The power of this office exists to protect the people inside this territory. All of them. Not selectively. Not based on rank or resource or who has a better attorney. His eyes return to Rowan Vale. When that power is used instead to shield the people doing harm, it is not power, it is corruption. And I will not wear corruption on my crown. Sarah is standing very still to his left. He does not look at her. Rowan's attorney is on his feet again. Sire, with respect, this proceeding is irregular. The correct process, Caden says, was followed 4 times by the woman to your left. 4 times this system chose rank over record. Today this system chooses differently. He nods to Marcus. Marcus steps forward and reads the formal charges. Stripped rank. Asset review. Mandatory council trial, with full evidentiary record. Enforcement hold. The words land in the square one at a time, like stones dropping into standing water, each one sending ripples through the crowd. Rowan Vale's composure cracks fully when Marcus reaches the stripped rank. His face changes not into remorse, into fury, which tells Caden everything about the man he already knew and needed the crowd to see. The crowd sees it. Caden steps back, looks at Sarah. She is looking at Rowan. Her face is still. Her hands are loose at her sides. She is not crying. She is not collapsing. She is watching a man who spent years making her feel powerless stand in the center of a public square while his power is systematically removed piece by piece. She breathes in, breathes out. Then she looks at Caden, and the look on her face, not gratitude, deeper than gratitude. The look of someone who just watched something they stopped believing could happen, actually happen, lands in his chest, and stays there. You didn't have to do it publicly, she says quietly. Yes, he says. I did. She nods. Once. Looks away. She is under my protection, Caden says to the square, his last statement before the formal close. And anyone who touches her answers to me directly. The crowd absorbs this. Some murmur. Most simply go still with the weight of what that sentence means when the Alpha King says it in a public square with his full voice. Rowan Vale is escorted away. Sarah watches him go until he is through the far gate and out of sight. Then she exhales slow, steady, controlled, and for just 1 second, she closes her eyes, and her face does something private and enormous and entirely her own. He gives her that second completely. Then Lily's voice carries from inside, calling her name, and Sarah opens her eyes and straightens, and she is already moving before she has fully decided to, but she stops beside him on the step. Caden. He looks at her. Thank you for not asking me to perform, she says. For the crowd, for the statement, any of it. He holds her gaze. You don't perform. She almost smiles. Almost. Then she goes in to Lily, and the crowd slowly breaks apart, and Marcus appears at Caden's shoulder, and the morning goes on, as mornings do. But the square feels different than it did an hour ago, and Caden Wolfe, for the first time in his reign, feels like his authority has been used correctly. The night is quiet in a way the palace has not been in days. No meetings. No reports. No Marcus appearing with another crisis to manage. Dinner was simple, the 3 of them at the small table in the East Wing sitting room, the formal dining room never suggested, because Sarah had looked at the formal dining room on her first tour and said, with complete seriousness, that she was not eating in a room that required an announcement. Lily had talked the entire meal. She had opinions about the bread. Specific, detailed opinions. She had a question about why the ceiling in the corridor had a painting of wolves and not dogs, because she preferred dogs, which she stated as a fact requiring no defense. She ate 3 portions and fell asleep on the sitting room couch before anyone cleared the plates, small and absolutely solid in the way sleeping children are, one hand tucked under her cheek. Sarah covers her with the blanket from the chair. She smooths Lily's hair once, carefully, and then straightens and turns and finds Caden watching. She does not look away from him. "I owe you a conversation," she says. Quiet, so she does not wake Lily. "You don't owe me anything." "I know." She moves toward the window. He follows, far enough from the couch to speak in low voices without disturbing Lily. The city lights blur soft and orange below. "That's why I want to have it." He waits. He has learned that she does not need to be pulled toward things. She arrives when she is ready and not a moment before. "I have spent the last 6 years making every decision based on what kept Lily safest," she says. She is looking out the window. Her reflection is there in the glass, faint and steady, where we slept, what I took, when I fought, and when I went quiet. Every single choice was about her. She pauses. "I don't regret that. I would do it the same way." "I know," he says, "but I lost something in it." She says it simply, without asking for sympathy. "I stopped wanting things for myself. It felt too expensive. Wanting things for yourself when you're barely keeping your child alive feels like a luxury you can't afford to carry." She turns from the window and faces him. Her eyes are steady, dark, direct. "I stopped knowing what I wanted, past keeping her safe, past surviving one more day." He holds her gaze and does not fill the space she is making. "And then," she says, "you sat on the floor of your own library at 2 a.m. and talked to me about being afraid of the dark." Something moves through her expression, not a smile, but the architecture of one. And I thought, this man is entirely different than what I prepared for. His jaw is tight. He releases it slowly. "What did you prepare for?" "Someone who wanted something from me. Everyone who has ever been kind to me wanted something specific in return." She tilts her head slightly. "You burned down a council. You went public. You sat on a library floor." She looks at him. "You never asked me for anything." "No," he says. "I didn't." "Why?" He looks at her for a long moment. At the woman who held her spine straight in the mud and told him not to touch her, and survived 7 years without sleeping, and raised a daughter who laughs without fear, and told a king, his face, said people should already be afraid, and meant it as a neutral observation. "Because you've had enough of people taking things from you," he says. "Whatever I want, it doesn't matter until you're ready to want something too." The room is completely still. Lily breathes softly on the couch. Sarah looks at him with the expression of someone receiving a thing they stopped believing existed. And then, slowly, she takes one step closer. Not swept up, not rushed, deliberate, the way she does everything. The way a woman moves who has learned that the ground cannot always be trusted and tests it carefully before committing her weight. She stops close enough that he can see the exact moment she decides. "I'm not choosing survival," she says, barely above a whisper. "I'm choosing you." He reaches out slow, the way he did in the library, giving her every chance to redirect, and his hand cups the side of her face. And she does not pull back. She leans in, just slightly, just enough, and closes her eyes. He does not kiss her. Not yet. He presses his forehead to hers, and they stand that way, breathing the same air. In the quiet room with the city lights below and Lily asleep on the couch. And it is not a dramatic ending. There are no crowds, no declarations, no ceremony. It is just 2 people choosing each other in the dark, after a very long time of surviving alone. And then Lily stirs on the couch and opens her eyes halfway and looks at them without any particular surprise and says, in a sleep-thick voice, "Are you going to be our family now?" Caden and Sarah both go still. Lily's eyes close again before either of them can answer. But Sarah's hand comes up and covers his where it rests against her face, and she holds it there, and that is the only answer either of them need. Safe, warm, complete. 3 people in one room with no threat at the door, and no decision left to carry alone. And outside, the city goes quiet, and the stars come out, and for the first time in 7 years, Sarah Calloway does not sit up listening. She sleeps. If this story moved you, if you have ever had to choose survival over everything else, or if you have ever watched someone hold themselves together when the whole world told them to fall apart, this one was for you. Drop a comment below and tell us the moment in this story that hit you hardest. Your words inspire every single person who reads them here. If you are new here, Subscribe right now and turn on every notification. New stories go up regularly, and you will not want to miss what comes next. This channel is built for the ones who need a story that reminds them that strength is real, that love can come in without breaking down your door, and that choosing yourself is never the wrong decision. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. We will see you in the next story.